When I was at the Young Turks, I covered, in addition to the Flint water crisis, I covered a story in East Chicago, Indiana, which honestly is kind of just as bad as Flint, just in a different way. Oh, thank you. Panayotis Dam. How do you pronounce this name? Hold on. We got a $30 GoFundMe contribution from Panayotis Damatopoulos. Probably said that wrong. Thank you for the $30, Panayotis. That brings us to 20,145. Can we get to 20,250 by the end of this? Let's see. So, East Chicago had a similar lead problem because East Chicago was a poor black and Latino community basically built on top of toxic shit. There was a poor black government housing complex built on top of a lead smelting plant. There was residential housing built literally next to the DuPont insecticide factory. DuPont was there. East Chicago at one point was the most industrialized city in the United States. And if you're beginning to notice something, they generally like to build their toxic shithole plants in America where poor people, where black people, where Latinos, where indigenous people live. That's why you see all these mines next to Native American reservations. They're putting all these pipelines through Native American reservations or black communities because, you know, Native Americans, black people, well, you know, if they get sick or they can't breathe or they get a little cancer, that's just the price of doing business, right? That's just the price of doing business. So, East Chicago, in 2016, I was on the ground there. They found lead levels more than 200 times the limit, the allowed limit, in the soil in one complex. I remember I was there. I literally couldn't breathe after an hour. So imagine growing up there as a child. I was so stuffed up. They had toxic levels of soil, toxic levels of arsenic in the soil there. And I asked an EPA official on the ground there. This was in 2016 when I was at the Young Turks. Have you guys tested the water? And he told me, no, this is not a water issue. This is not a Flint issue. It's not the same thing as Flint. This is just the soil. Just the soil. So, of course, that wasn't true. The EPA is either grossly incompetent or they're constantly fudging data and lying. So, a couple months after that, they find lead in the water. Have they tested all the homes in East Chicago, Indiana for lead or arsenic contamination? Of course not. And in Michigan right now, they found a PFAS contamination epidemic. PFAS are porphyrinactic acids. They are chemicals that are the byproducts of the process of making non-stick cookware, like Teflon. So the shorthand is PFAS. They are toxic chemicals. They could cause cancer. They have found them in North Carolina. They have found them in the Ohio River Valley area in Florida. And now they've found them in Michigan. But Michigan has acted very quickly. Why? Because they found them in white communities that are middle class and have some money. So they have been acting very quickly on it, sending in the bottled water and trying to clean it up. But in Flint, they told them for 18 months, don't believe the hair falling out of your head. Don't believe the nosebleeds you have. Don't believe the terrible rashes all over you. There's nothing here. So, East Chicago, Indiana, you would think, okay, they found lead levels 200 times the allowable limit in this complex. You'd think they might want to clean that up, like, pretty much right when they found it. Well, apparently you'd be wrong. EPA plans soil removal at lead-tainted Indiana complex. This is 2.5 years later. This complex, let me remind you, poor black people. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is moving ahead with a plan for a 2-foot deep removal of lead and arsenic contaminated soil at the site of a northwestern Indiana public housing that's been evacuated and demolished over health concerns. The agency estimates the cleanup project at the East Chicago's West Calumet housing complex will cost about $26 million. It would involve removing more than 160,000 cubic yards of soil contaminated over decades by a lead products factory and replacing it with clean soil and seed or sod. It's not just lead, it's arsenic too. More than 1,000 people, including about 700 children, were forced from the housing complex after 2016 tests found high blood lead levels in blood samples from some children and some yards, with lead levels over 70 times the U.S. safety standard. Oh my God. These people, the Associated Press doesn't even know what the hell it's talking about. It wasn't over 70 times. The lead levels in the soil were over 200 times the, quote, safety limit. I don't know where they're getting their numbers. It wasn't some yards. It was the whole fucking complex. Under the EPA's plan for bringing the Superfund site to residential standards, soil below 2 feet would remain. Quote, we made a promise to the residents of East Chicago to make this site a priority, and now we are ready to put shovels in the ground and clean up the site, EPA Region 5 administrator said. The housing complex was near the site of U.S. smelter and lead refinery, which salvaged lead from old car batteries and scrap metal before it closed in 1985. Mayor Anthony Copeland has told the EPA that he's talked with developers considering commercial or industrial projects for the site, aka gentrification, while advocates for former West Calumet residents argue new housing should be built there. Thomas Frank, who I've interviewed many times, a member of Calumet Lives Matters, said many other non-residential locations in the city are more suitable to business or other industrial developments. What's so important about that is the residents in Calumet would have never agreed to demo of West Calumet but for the promise that this would be redeveloped as housing. So of course, like in Flint, they are trying to use the Flint water crisis as an excuse to bulldoze the hell out of the north side, which is the poorest part of Flint. They want to push the poor black people out of there, and they want to make it a nice college town. Build up some complexes, put in a Whole Foods, some bars, some restaurants. Development, they call it. Off the carcasses of poisoned residents. And now they're doing the same thing in Indiana. So I was there. I've been to East Chicago 6 times. And by the way, this was the quiet crisis. This happened under Vice President Mike Pence when he was governor of Indiana. You know, Vice President Mike Pence, when he was governor of Indiana, didn't have a problem going to Greentown, Indiana, which is 97% white. They had a problem with their water, lead found in the water. He went up there so quick, as Trump would say, your head would spin. That problem was fixed 2 months. Natural Progressive. Jordan needs to come to Utah. Give him a tour. Hey, Natural Progressive, I got something for you. Putting it in here. Boom. GoFundMe. Never been to Utah. Jordan doesn't fly. Cone? I fly all the time. What are you talking about? So, there's many problems with this. Number one, they did not help these people in this complex move. They gave them a little money, but most of them had to find places to live on their own. Many of them had forced eviction and were given addresses they had to go to, not by choice. I know people. Hold on. I'm getting a breaking news alert. Jen, send me the link to that. I don't want to say it if I don't know. I know people that literally got a letter saying you have to be out in 10 days. Poor black woman with kids had to be out in 10 days, and they're moving to Chicago, to a dangerous neighborhood in Chicago. So the residents were told, we're going to bulldoze the complex, we're going to clean it up, and then we're going to create more government housing for the poor. Well, first of all, it took them 2 years to clean up this soil. Just because they demolished the complex doesn't mean that lead and arsenic isn't contaminating the surrounding areas. Why did it take 2 years? Why did it take 2 years? Why? Because they're poor black people. That's why. If this happened anywhere else, if this happened on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, they'd be in 2 hours cleaning it up. They put people in hotels for as long as it took, and they clean it up quickly. But in this case, it took 2 years to clean this up. 2.5, actually. And now they want to build a new development for commercial development, aka probably a nice little yuppie complex. It's disgusting. You force these people out after moving them in on top of a toxic lead smelting plant that the EPA and state environmental officials and landlords knew was dangerous to them. Environmental racism at its peak. And as a breaking news alert, Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, has been arrested for an alleged domestic violence incident. Ooh, the irony. I will hold my judgment. I haven't read into this, so I don't know what happened. But Michael Avenatti, multiple outlets are reporting, who represents Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, the two women who have accused President Trump of some things. He also tried to get involved in the Kavanaugh ordeal. He's been arrested for an alleged domestic violence. Darth, shock, horror. Phil, of course. I don't want to laugh. I mean, it's not funny. I don't know the details, so I don't know if it's true or not. Polish Hammer, new hot convict. America has turned into a Seinfeld episode. I wish it was actually funny, because Seinfeld's funny. But I'm angry on behalf of the people of East Chicago, Indiana. Imagine for a second, if you have kids, you're poor, you find a complex that's a government housing complex. Nobody says a thing to you about, this was built in the shadow of a lead smelting plant that emitted lead, arsenic. Not a word to you about that. You move in. Your kid growing up has learning difficulties, has constant bronchitis, behavior problems. You don't know what the hell's going on. Then in 2016, you're told, we found extremely dangerous toxic levels of lead and arsenic that have been here for decades, but were never tested. And we're demolishing the complex. You guys have to find a new place to live. Poor people, this is. Thank you, Carrie. $20 on the super chat. Some reports out that California fire is now in danger of having nuclear ash. Oh, God. Good God. If you remember, Carrie, when I was at the Young Turks, I was covering a nuclear waste site in the St. Louis area, like right outside of St. Louis, that the nuclear waste site is literally right next to a landfill, and that landfill had an underground methane fire. An underground methane fire that was never, it's just raging underground. Methane, underground, an inferno. And the EPA has never measured how close that underground fire is to that nuclear waste site. But if that nuclear waste site and that underground fire hit, it could be a nuclear explosion that goes all the way from Missouri into Illinois. That's not me saying it. That's experts on the ground saying it. In that community, I think it's called Bridgeton, the Bridgeton landfill, literally kids have to go outside when they play with masks on. Carrie says, wow, unbelievable the crap our government gets away with. They're not going to get away with it if status quo is on the beat. We're in our infancy, baby. We're just getting our training wheels on. We still got diapers on. We just launched the website. We're about to pass 22,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. We're raising money as fast as we can so we could get out in the field and stay out in the field. We're not going to be like everybody else on the 2020 campaign trail. We're not just going to go to cover primaries. Well, first of all, we don't have the money to do any of that right now. We're going to go into communities, and we're going to show you what they are voting based on. We are going to show you the injustice. We are going to show you the corruption. We are going to show you the environmental genocide, the police brutality, the economic oppression. I don't care how gray my hair has to get. A little sensitive about that. Got a couple grays coming in. And get on that email list. Jen's putting it right there. If you're not on that email list, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. So all these people, they were forced out of this complex. They're forced out of this complex. They were told, we're going to rebuild the complex, another government housing complex. And they were lied to. And now they're probably going to build a nice gentrified complex and bring young college students and yuppies in.